What if following your highest excitement is actually the very thing keeping you stuck? I want to start off this video by being very honest. Every time I try and sit down and film it, my mind comes up with a million reasons on why I shouldn't. It tells me maybe it's not the right time, I'm probably not going to say things perfectly, and I'm probably going to leave something out, so what's the point? And that, ironically, is the perfect way to introduce what I want to talk about today, because the truth is, making this video does excite me, but at the same time, there is so much resistance and fear there, but instead of letting that stop me, I'm choosing to show up anyways. I've noticed in my own life how often I've chased excitement, not realizing that excitement itself was sometimes a part of the problem. I would reach for whatever felt most exciting in the moment and didn't realize that it was actually the reason that I was stuck. A lot of spiritual teachers talk about how following your highest excitement or following your path of least resistance will keep you in alignment and your dream life will naturally unfold. And don't get me wrong, I think there is a lot of truth behind that, but I've had to learn something the hard way, and that is excitement can be deceiving. And following it blindly without questioning where it comes from can be dangerous and can leave you in unwanted loops without realizing it. First, we have to understand something fundamental about being human. Every single thing we do, every action, and every habit we have is because we believe it will give us some sort of fulfillment or keep us safe. This is why many of us often get stuck in patterns that don't feel fulfilling long term, because we've been conditioned to believe that certain things will bring us fulfillment and keep us safe. These beliefs are rooted from our past traumas, our fears, and what we were taught about the world growing up. Our ego or our human mind will always move towards familiar patterns, comforts, and distractions, and things that give us a quick sense of relief, even if they leave us feeling drained or disconnected from ourselves afterwards. Today, I want to break down why excitement isn't always a reliable guide, how your ego and your limiting beliefs filter your excitement, how addiction ties into this, and how shifting from chasing in the moment excitement to living in passion is what actually changes your life. I want to start off talking about the ego. Our higher mind is always sending us little sparks, nudges, and impulses towards things that excite us and things that could lead to our growth. But before we even register those impulses, they pass through a filter, and that is your ego. The ego's only job is survival. It does not care about your expansion or growth. And maybe your whole life you've been told that security looks like a 9-to-5 job and that you shouldn't take big risks and that creativity won't pay the bills. And even if you consciously disagree, those collective beliefs can still live in your subconscious mind and affect the way that excitement is filtered through it. A lot of people talk about the ego and they talk about it in a way like it's something negative, but really the ego isn't bad. It's just your human mind, and it's doing its best to protect you the only way it knows how, based on what you've known and what you've been taught to know. And the truth is, the same limiting beliefs that are holding you back now, at one point, they did serve and protect you, which is why you had them in the first place. If you were in an environment or a system or a situation that wasn't safe, you needed to play small and stay guarded to avoid danger and in order to survive. And that gets deeply rooted into your nervous system. Here's where the ego becomes a trap, because it doesn't know that the information you have is outdated. It treats old beliefs like fixed, finite truths, and it assumes if something unsafe happened once, it could happen again, so let's never go there. It's not interested in whether or not those beliefs are still serving you. It's only interested in what feels certain and what feels known. And unless you consciously choose something new, unless you consciously show your ego through action that a new path is possible and safe, it will continue to keep looping you through the same patterns that feel familiar in your comfort zone. At its core, your ego just wants to keep you alive. That's really all it comes down to. The ego believes that if you let go of these patterns, and if you step into the unknown, and if you kill the ego's way of thinking, you might die. It doesn't distinguish between physical death and the death of outdated beliefs. To the ego, it all feels like danger. That is the hardest part to overcome. Learning how to recognize when your ego is running old scripts and gently showing it through conscious choices that you're safe to choose something new. Now let's break down the key differences between excitement and passion, because they're not the same. Excitement feels like a spark, and it's stimulating, it gives you a rush. It pretty much is just a hit of dopamine. But because excitement is filtered through your ego, your past experiences, and the collective beliefs you've absorbed, it often becomes attached to whatever feels safe, familiar, easy, or instantly relieving. This is why you can genuinely feel excited about things such as smoking weed, doom scrolling, chasing validation, or any habit that gives you fast relief. It's all just dopamine. It feels good in the moment, but usually leaves you needing another hit. It's temporary and it's relief-based, but relief is not the same thing as fulfillment. Passion is something much deeper. Passion isn't about an instant good feeling, it's about alignment. It's about channeling who your true self is. And passion is anything that allows you to express who you authentically are without any filters. Following your passion isn't just some big or faraway life purpose. It is small in the moment to moment ways that you connect to yourself beneath all of the noise. Whether it's writing, dancing, cooking, or just expressing yourself openly, all of these can be expressions of your passion. What really matters isn't what you're doing, but how present, authentic, and connected to your true self you feel while you're doing it. Passion isn't about just chasing a high, it's about the natural state you return to when you stop running from yourself. And when you're in that state of passion and when you're expressing your true self openly, you naturally shift to a higher state. You're not seeking relief, you're not filling a void, you're just being who you are. And because of that, the feel-good chemicals in your brain, such as dopamine and serotonin, can flow in a balanced and sustainable way. Passion doesn't drain you like quick fixes do. It doesn't leave you empty, needing more. It stabilizes you because it keeps you connected to yourself, to the true source of your energy. And this is how you change your life, because over time, the more you live in that natural channeled state, the more you stop attracting from survival fear and limiting beliefs, and you start attracting from true alignment. Your external reality will slowly start to reflect that steady and authentic energy. More opportunities, more aligned people, and more meaningful experiences can show up, but not because you're chasing them, but because they match the version of you who is living in connection with your true self, not the version of you that is just chasing relief. The more you consistently act on your passion, then the more you stay in that channeled state, the more life expands and builds upon itself. But here's what most people miss. Passion doesn't always feel thrilling or exciting right away. Passion asks you to stretch out of what side is comfortable, and it asks you to stay consistent when it's easy to get distracted, and to sit with discomfort instead of immediately reaching for relief. Your passion will challenge the part of you that is conditioned to stay in fear. Excitement feels easier because your ego links it to things that are fast, familiar, and low effort. Even if after doing those things, you're left feeling drained or disconnected. So let's go deeper on what's actually happening biologically. Dopamine is the chemical in our brains that is responsible for pretty much everything we feel motivated to do. Dopamine runs our motivation, reward, and pleasure feedback loops in our brains. Every time you do something relieving, like doom scrolling, binge eating, shopping, you get a big hit of dopamine. I love the addiction doctor, Anna Lembick, I think is how you say her name. She's one of the leading experts on dopamine and addiction. In her research, she explains the more you overload your dopamine system with fast, easy highs, the more your brain builds a tolerance. The more you flood the pleasure side of your brain with more dopamine, the more pain you'll feel when it wears off, because your brain is trying to keep itself in equilibrium, and if it sees there's way too much dopamine for whatever reason, it will stop naturally producing its own. Over time, it takes more and more instant, fast relief to feel the same excitement, motivation, or even baseline. This is why when you rely on instant gratification, it becomes harder and harder to feel excited or motivated by things that would fulfill you long term because they don't give you the same hit and you're not motivated towards them. And now your ego, trying to keep you comfortable, starts associating excitement with only things that it knows will give you a quick relief. Add in the collective beliefs that reinforce those patterns that want you to be stuck in those loops, and you don't realize how much your excitement is actually just attached to your avoidance, not your growth. You might genuinely feel excited by habits that are keeping you stuck. At the same time, the things that would truly reconnect you to your authentic self, your passions, they don't feel as exciting because they require you to break that pattern. Here is the truth about excitement. Excitement is just a frequency. It's a communication channel between your higher self and your physical mind. But the part most people miss is that excitement isn't always a command to act. It's feedback and inspiration. And if you're feeling excited or inspired by something that is unhealthy or unfulfilling and you know that, please know that you are not broken. It just is showing you that your excitement is being filtered through limiting beliefs, past trauma, and collective fear. True excitement, the kind that is aligned with your higher self and your passions, feels expansive. It feels light, clear, and inspired. And it's not just about relief. It's about being in the flow. It's about being who you fully are, not escaping discomfort, but expressing yourself freely, fully, and authentically in whatever way that feels right to you. I was someone for who a long time blindly followed my excitement, thinking that if it felt good in the moment, it meant that it was in alignment and on my highest path. But the more I chased those instant feeling good highs, the more I silenced the part of me that wanted actual long-term fulfillment, and I kept ending up right back where I started. I didn't realize that excitement, when filtered through old beliefs and survival patterns, were just leading me to addiction. These patterns always felt relieving short term, but always pulled me further and further away from my true self. And for me, one of those patterns throughout the years has been weed. At first, it seemed harmless and even very helpful. I got it through the program of my state to do it legally, and for a while it worked. But over time, the more and more I used it, the more I needed it to just feel normal. It stopped being a conscious choice and became something that I depended on from a day-to-day basis just to avoid the discomfort of not having it. The more I used it and the more I amassed that discomfort, the less I cared about doing things that I knew deep down would actually fulfill me and lead me towards something bigger. It numbed the part of me that wanted to grow, and it covered the discomfort, but it also covered my clarity, my drive, and the things that would have reconnected me back to myself. Eventually, my body couldn't handle it anymore, and it literally started making me sick. And I had to get brutally honest with myself, and I stopped asking what feels exciting right now, and I started asking what allows me to truly connect with myself right now. I realized that every day, every action, every habit I had is a energetic vote. I was either reinforcing patterns that kept me disconnected and depended on relief, or I was reinforcing patterns that connected me to my higher self and what would actually fulfill me long term. Neither choice is inherently right or wrong, and I don't think weed is bad, and for a time it did serve a purpose, and I know for many people it is a very useful tool and they are able to use it in a healthy way. But as someone who is naturally prone to addiction and someone who's wired for intensity because I have ADHD, it stopped being a tool and it became a trap. It stopped serving me, and I had to ask myself, what do I really want to be addicted to? quick relief or true stability in self-expression? And that is the question I want to leave with you, because whether or not it is weed, alcohol, validation, toxic relationships, distractions, or any form of temporary relief, the more we rely on those things, the more we stay disconnected from the very things that could bring us lasting fulfillment. But the moment you start choosing your passions, the things that reconnect you to yourself, even if they feel uncomfortable at first, that's when the shift starts to begin. That's when the void starts to fill itself, but not because you're numbing it, but because you're finally expressing what's been there all along, and you begin to feel full, but not from something outside of you, full of your own spirit. And there's nothing more satisfying, more stabilizing, and more powerful than that. Better than any high, better than any validation, because I think that's what we're all really searching for in the end. Permission to fully be ourselves. If this video resonated with you, I would love it if you would hit the subscribe button and join me weekly to talk more about the law of attraction rooted in truth, and ADHD tips, and anything I feel inspired to talk about, really. Thank you for watching this video if you made it this far, and I will see you all next week.